You say, how many of you, and you don't have to raise your hand, you can, but how many of you have felt filled with doubt and fear? Overwhelmed by too much information? How many have felt their senses being overloaded and their emotions out of control and their mind unfocused? Okay, how many of you in the last 3 minutes? That's part of our human experience. And that was the same thing that a young warrior named Arjuna was feeling on the battlefield in that beautiful Hindu mystical epic, the Bhagavad Gita. There he was, lost, not knowing what to do, feeling just what we heard in that song. In the middle of polar opposites. He didn't know what to do, yet the wisdom given to him by God, Krishna, at that time that was spoken in that beautiful reading 5,000 years ago, is eternal and resonates today, and is something we all can use. It's just as important then as it is now. We're all on our own so-called battlefield of life, trying to make sense of things when sometimes we can't. And when Arjuna was in the midst of his meltdown right there, Krishna, God, said to him, you need a reflective break. You need to step away from all of this confusion, because when your mind is so busy like that, you're holding a bunch of unprocessed thoughts and emotions. Can you relate? Me too. We got all this stuff going on, and we have to have the power to step away for a moment, a reflective break. And God, Krishna, was telling Arjuna that you need in that break to separate yourself from all that's going on in your mind. Anxiety about the future, worries and regret from the past, not knowing what to do in the moment. You need to I would never say a step back, because a step up in consciousness, because we're in the consciousness business. Our job is to make sense of things through the power of our mind and our consciousness by stepping into that higher place. And he told Arjuna he needed to be the observer to the mob thoughts and the mob emotions that were going on. And when you're an observer looking at all these things, you aren't participating in all of the frenetic energy, but you're able to look at it and process it. He said, all your worries, I'll tell you, problems cannot exist without mind's active participation. Your mind, my mind's active participation. There is no problem if we're not thinking about it and worrying about it. We create it. We're there participating. And once we step aside, he told Arjuna, what I want you to practice is having a reflective consciousness, being the observer, reflecting, thinking about things. There's so much more going on. There is so much more going on than we see in the moment, rather than a reactive mind that keeps going like this, boom, 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 boom. He didn't want that busy mind with all those unprocessed thoughts and emotion running this beautiful, skilled young warrior's life. He wanted him to have the consciousness and the knowing to be in control. And he said, we will never, ever, ever find peace if we're living in the battle and the struggle between trying to get those pair of opposites working together. And he said that all life, Krishna said all life is about reconciling our pair of opposites. And so when today's message is about spirit has no opposites, and Virginia said, well, what does that mean? What am I experiencing in my life? How do I know what's going on if I don't have these pair of opposites? Well, that's what we're going to talk about this morning. How do we reconcile the understanding of the pairs of opposites? Ernest Holmes said the very biggest danger in our world is a belief in dualism. A belief that there are two powers at work in this world. Jesus said, a house divided against itself can't stand. It can't work. We get caught up in our human mind. But our human mind, the only reason we think it's not connected to this big mind is that we have free will. And we don't have to own our power. We don't have to claim that our consciousness, we're in the consciousness business here, that we can move it up. Our higher self, our divine mind, is part of that bigger consciousness. This isn't a problem. The problem goes on from 5,000 years ago and continues throughout history. We're still learning. Plato had a beautiful allegory, the allegory of the cave, that I think tells a lot about the human mind and when we accept things just by looking at the appearance of things. In this cave, he says, the uneducated, the unaware person is a prisoner chained in a cave where their head cannot move, and all they can see is a wall. And behind them is a blazing fire. Spirit is a fire. But in between the fire and the prisoner can only see the wall, there are puppets and puppeteers dancing and moving and singing. But all the prisoner can see is the shadow on the wall. And that becomes reality to them. Those shadows on the wall. They think that's what's real. The same thing happens to you and me. We see life with a limited viewpoint and we think that that's all there is. We forget there's something so much more at work. But what Plato says, how he finishes this allegory, he says, some of those prisoners set themselves free and turn around and see the light. Are you ready? Let's go. We want to do that. We want to turn around and see the light, that there's something so much more going on than what we see just with our human eyes. Now, let me ask you a question. It's going to take a little bit of, think about this. Can there be an up when there's not a down? Can there be a hot when there's not a cold? Can there be a beauty if there isn't anything not so beautiful? Think about that. That's a question for us. We need opposites in this human experience so that we can learn about ourselves and learn about life. If we don't sense tragedy, how can we sense true beauty and love and kindness and compassion? If we don't see things that are scary and frightening, how do we know when we're really feeling at peace and at oneness? We need these opposites in life, in this human experience, in order for us to really understand what life is all about. We're on this journey of awakening, right? We started in oneness, in love, and we've come down here for a little more experience, and we're going back to that same place. But we need markers on the journey, right? It's a spiral journey going upward. We need to know where we are and how we're doing. But we need these feelings and emotions in order for us to understand. Now, the problem is, not only do we have our own mind to think about, we've been taught since we were little about this, this is one power, this is one power. Good, bad, yes, no. We've been taught that, and it becomes part of our consciousness. But we don't just have that. We also have the collective unconscious, which Jung talked about. Ernest Holm called it the race mind, which is the human race mind with all of the collective thoughts, feelings, and experiences of all time that we tap into. I'm exhausted just thinking of it. But we're tapping into all of those things that give us these limited ideas about life, and they become our subjective tendencies. But do you want some good news?
Yes.
Yeah, me too. Our consciousness, our conscious mind is stronger than any of that. So when I talked this morning about taking action, here's what Krishna told Arjuna. He said, we have to have a vision, because we know without vision what happens. people perish. We have to know where we're going. It would be like trying to get to a destination without having a clue where it is or what you're doing or what you want. We have to have a vision. We have to know what we want. So he said, Arjuna, you need to know what you want. And then he said, you need to take action. You need to do your part. Every one of us has a part to play, not only in our life, but in the consciousness of this world. We have a part to play. Our vision, we do our part. That sounds good so far, right? Okay, you're not going to like this last one, though. There's a third part to that. We have to get our vision and do our part. What's the next right thing for me? How can I move along towards my vision? Do all that. But then we can't be attached to the outcome. Dang! We got to let it go. Because in that part of letting go, we have to trust there's something so much bigger going on. Something so much bigger. We have to trust it. We have to know it. Now let me talk just a moment about these polarities that we mentioned in life, because there are the polarities in this human experience that really give life meaning. As I said, if you haven't been deeply hurt, I know from the most difficult times in my life, I have found strength I've never known I had. It's in those times. So we may label them as bad and not good and hurtful and a problem, but they're really the things that stretch and grow us to something greater. So here are these polarities in life. But if you and I can realize that there really is only one power, and the things that look like two powers, a power for good, a power for bad, evil, live spelled backwards, a power for love, a power for hate, a power for joy, a power for sadness. If we really think there's two powers, they're not. They're all a different way we use one power. It's like a rheostat, a little energy thing. We can turn the energy down or we can turn the energy up. Think what happens when we turn a light on in a dark, dark room. Does the darkness run away? Does it go hide in the closet? Or does it just become something more because the energy is turned up? You and I have that same thing. We have a range of emotions, a spectrum of things. Hot and cold have the same same nature, but they're different degrees on the spectrum of temperature. Are you understanding? So we need to become aware of that when something that we claim as bad happens in our life, there's something more to it. There is always something to be learned. There's never a time in life where there's not something for us to learn about ourselves, to learn about life, to learn about each other. Because teach and practice, learn and practice. That's what Ernest Holmes said all life is about. That's why we're here. We're students. We've heard we're students of life for so long, and it's up to us. So if there's something going on in your life and you want a higher understanding, turn that, I don't know where your rheostat, your power center is, but turn it up. Expand your awareness. Think what a reflective break. Look down and see what's possible, what's going on. This call to action today for us, because there is confusion about spirit has no opposites, but it's all part of the one power. When Jesus said, when the blind lead the blind, both fall in a ditch. And he wasn't talking about eyesight. He was talking about consciousness. When we lead ourselves and other people around in old limiting beliefs, old limiting thoughts. Do you know once I heard that we each are a collectiveness of all the 5 people we spend the most time with? You better watch out who you're spending time with. Because it gets in here, it gets in here, it gets in here. We got to be very aware of how we're using this precious energy of our life. We want to make sure that we are following the ideals that are leading us towards our vision, that we're doing our part. And if we find ourselves in a situation that's leading us down, What did those prisoners do? They broke free and they turned around. They turned around right there so they could make sure that they were on the path. They wanted to get away, and they did, and they wanted to follow the light, because I'll tell you, the light is way stronger than the darkness. Love is way stronger than hate. It's higher up in the higher vibrational realm. And as metaphysicians, we should know that. We should know all life is energy, and it's just on that spectrum of how high we turn it up or how low we turn it down. We get to choose how we do it. You and I, without question, are here to be alive and to fully express. Now, this is our prayer wall Sunday, and it's the time when our practitioners and ministers stand up here, and we've already established that God is all there is, and we're one with God. But we get to do our prayers. We get to ask for something that's going to turn our energy up, that's going to get us more in vibration, what is good and right and true. So I want you to close your eyes for a minute, and as we always say, it's so much better if we're an open vessel and vehicle, so we untangle ourselves, so we're not all wound up in our own small self, but to open to something greater. Just take a nice deep breath in your own energy. Let that breath just bring space in this beautiful vehicle, vessel, temple, this body that holds our spirit, our soul, our light, our life. Make the openness for the greater possibility to set in. And either in this moment, if you feel a block, what is it you need to let go, to vibrate at the higher vibration of love, to be the light we bring into the room, to share the joy, the goodness that we're made of? What is it I need to let go? What is it I need to step into? What is it I need to become? Do we need to let go of fear? Do we need to expand our faith? Because as we turn up this energy, this light, this knowing, as we integrate the opposites into experiences to grow, to strengthen, to evolve, to know, here's what happens. We become more tolerant and understanding. We become more loving and compassionate. And forgiveness isn't just a one-time, one-shot deal here and there. Forgiveness is our way of life. So either I come to the wall and say, today I let go of fear, I let go of doubt, or today I step into faith, today I step into strength, today I step into my power, because it is today that we are uplifting, up-leveling our consciousness. So what we say is the truth of who we are. We are the beautiful, individualized expression of God in action. So just keeping that in mind, I'm going to ask our practitioners and ministers to start our prayer wall and start from the center and move out. So we have a beautiful wall of love, of truth, of faith, of knowing, a wall of spirit that is welcoming and open and available for each and every one of us. As our prayers are coming to a close, each one of you that stayed in your seats and are doing your own individual prayers, just release all these prayers into that law of good, the power of universal mind, that energy of love which knows only to say yes to each and every prayer given. And as we close up this time together and know that every prayer is answered even before it is spoken, may we just know together that each prayer is an answer in itself. And I'll tell you, today, as we've up-leveled our consciousness, I know you'd be very, 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 very disappointed if I didn't give one quote at least from my 700-year-old boyfriend. So I'm just going to leave you with this, because it's a journey I want you and I to take together right now. Out beyond the ideas of right doing and wrongdoing, there is a field. I'll meet you there. And when the soul lies down in that grass. Words don't make any sense. Language doesn't make any sense. Even the phrase each other makes no sense at all, because we are one. And that's the journey I want to take with you. And when we take that journey, we'll know without question that we have lived fully, that we've been the expression that Spirit wants us to be. I know we're in this together. We support each other. We love each other. We honor each other. And we're doing Spirit's work in beautiful ways. I thank you for who you are and who we are all becoming. And let's seal this by saying together, and so it is. God bless you all. Thank you, thank you, thank you.